This week, we're going to spend less time talking about Afghanistan and more time discussing the feeling of coming home. This episode is more reminiscent of what a conversation amongst friends would be and is going to have less of a podcast feel. It's the best way to capture the subject. From how we saw standard day to day activities to the evolution of friendships and responsibilities, most people will tell you that deployments change a person, no matter how rough or convenient the deployment may have been. Our perspectives on life evolve over time, in large part due to going overseas and serving in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. And over the next hour, we're going to do our best to explain those changed perspectives while not trying to sound too cynical. We're going to be a little more direct and critical of events and figures than usual. It just comes with the territory of the topic. Welcome to the Boardwalk.
Welcome to another episode of the Boardwalk Podcast. This week we're going to be discussing the topic of homecoming, like that feeling and all the emotions and things associated with either coming back from Afghanistan or any kind of war zone to begin with, and just how we may have put it together over the years, because it's been going on 5 years since I was there. Wow, I mean, time's gone. So just kind of we just wanted to have a chat and talk about kind of some of the things we experienced coming back. And the first thing I noticed when I came back from my first deployment, upon landing, I think in Houston airport from the Middle East, was the advertisements. I don't know if you guys experienced that or if you guys have thought about it, but the first mind blowing thing to me was realizing how much we're all advertised to. Like you land and I realized I hadn't seen an ad in 6 months. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that or not when you came back.
It's definitely now that you mention it, right? Yeah, in my year in Iraq and my year and a half in Afghanistan, I don't recall ever seeing an advertisement. Uh, what I really noticed when I came back was, and I'm kind of a cynic on this one, but fuck, man, I just wanted to go to my room, right? We got back, and I just wanted to get back to the barracks and go to sleep. And there's a whole fucking thing, and when we landed, we were on the tarmac in the airplane for an additional 10 minutes because they wanted to make sure we all had the same combat patch on, and people were refusing to do it. Right. So when I came back, it was oh yeah, the army exists again. Because when I was in Iraq, I was just doing my job. Right. It was pretty simple. I got up, I went and did my job, and I went back to my room. And people really leave you alone as long as you're doing your job. And then you realize when you come back, it's oh yeah, I'm in the army because now we have to do this stupid shit. But yeah, we sat there for 10 minutes waiting for people to finally agree to put a combat patch on for our unit, right? And then the next thing I noticed was they're playing Lee Greenwood.
Oh, yeah. I mean, thank God nobody played Lee Greenwood on ours. I think it's because we were such a small contingent. Did you come back as a battalion-sized element or anything?
No, we came back. So I was at the core level in our ACE, our analysis and control element, and there may have been, I don't know, 70 of us at most.
Really?
Right. And we get there. It's Fort Bragg, dude. It's just a giant fucking dog and pony show. So we get there and they're playing that shitty, and for the listeners, that Lee Greenwood song fucking sucks. Okay. But they're playing that Lee Greenwood song, and apparently he's a real asshole in person.
I've heard several stories. Yeah.
But yeah, we get there, and the first thing you hear is that Lee Greenwood song. I'm like, God, I just want to go to my room. Right. I don't even care what room I don't even have a room. Right, there's somebody from the S1 or whatever. Give me a key and a room number and let me go sleep. I've been awake for 2 days. That was my first reaction coming back from Iraq. My first reaction coming back from Afghanistan is nobody cares what's going on over there.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember being in the airport waiting for my connector flight. So Stu, Matt, and I all came back on the same day. Matt and I flew to Phoenix, and then I flew up to Salt Lake City. And I remember sitting in the airport in Phoenix, and they're like, airports are. You have like an airport friend, like in Fight Club, the 5 minute
Yeah.
friend type thing, single serving
Yeah.
friend, and they're like, they want to get your life story. You're like, oh, I'm flying home from from work, and like, where's work? It's like, I was in Afghanistan. There's like, we're there, yeah, we're still in Afghanistan, spending billions of your dollars a year. We're still in Afghanistan. You should know that. Like that's what really got me, is that nobody cares, nobody knows. But according to all the op-eds I read today, a lot of people care all of a sudden.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to experience that throughout my my whole career. Really, I mean, I never went to Iraq as Zach likes to say. You know, everyone in the military during a certain time went to Iraq. Well, I came right on the tail end of that, and Afghanistan was where I had most of my work experience. But yeah, I mean, everyone you talk to about it is like, man, I can't believe we're still over there. Like, I thought Obama pulled
Yeah,
us out of that. It's like, no, that's Iraq. That's that still hasn't happened. I think if it's 2014. So
I mean, it still hasn't happened in 2021. Technically, they're
well,
working on
yeah,
it now. You know,
Yeah, it's
we never fully leave anywhere.
That's interesting you mentioned sitting there because I remember getting off the plane and there was like a small contingent from the unit there to greet us. And maybe it's because we were an aviation unit and it was more laid back. But I mean, we all just looked like, we looked like awful getting off that plane. We've been like stuck in Qatar for several days with like no air conditioning and like came back and we were just, met our families and then we all just went home. Like from the airport, there was no real show to it. So that was nice. I can't really complain about that. But that's interesting. You just sat there trying to figure out which patch you're going to put on when everybody just wants to go home.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will
you guys should
say,
have tried being assigned to an SF unit, man. It was fucking awesome.
I,
We
I
we fly home, and we usually go through Germany and stop there for like 24 hours because pilots like to hang out in Germany too. And then
I wonder why.
we'd get home and no one would give a shit. You'd go get released, and then it was like 72 hours before you even have to see anyone else in the unit.
And I don't want to sound like too much of a Debbie Downer, right? So like once we get through the 10 minutes of okay, everybody put on the same patch, and then you get through the 5 minutes of walking across the tarmac because they park the aircraft as far away as humanly possible. We get into the hangar, you hear the Lee Greenwood song. The battalion commander, he came up, he said a few words, really nice stuff, and then we're released. I go see my mom and dad and sister were there, so I go and see them and talk to them. Like that all was nice. I'm not saying the moment itself wasn't nice. I'm saying all the bullshit leading up to the moment was like you're welcome back to America. Now go do regular army things moment. You know,
Yeah, and it does hit you kind of like a sack of bricks, like because you're like, yeah, okay, come to your sexual harassment training on Monday. Like, come on, like, okay, well, that's cool. I'm glad to see you guys have been carrying on without us here. That's for sure.
yeah.
So, uh, but yeah, I just remember all the ads. Like, and that was like the biggest, thing for me is like you land in Houston, and we're just all so freaking tired of just being ferried all over the world because everything had a problem. We had like a 747 engine went down or whatever in Qatar. We got stuck there. We finally get home, and it's like everybody wants to sell me something. That's all I remember thinking. Like sitting at the airport, I'm like, this is just so freaking strange. And yeah, and then you get home, and then all you want to do is just, like you said, sit in your room and not talk to anybody for like a week.
Yeah, I just wanted to go to sleep. Like I didn't even, there's the running joke, like everybody, when I get home I'm just gonna go out and drink. No, you're not. That's like the fourth thing you're going to do. You're going to go home. You're going to sleep for almost a day if you can. Then you're going to eat. Then you're going to shower. Then you're going to go drink. Right. And that's really how it was. I didn't do shit all that first day. I got my stuff. Hell, I didn't even shower at our barracks because you got 50 people trying to use the shower at the same time. Mind you, I grew up like 4 miles away. So I went to my parents' house and I racked up their water bill. I took a really long hot shower because I was working nights in Iraq, and so I would get off work. I'd go and I'd run like 6 miles every morning, and then I would get back to my room and then I'd go shower. Well, I'm showering after everybody else has showered to start their day. So I had cold showers for literally an entire year. So first thing I did when I got home was took like a 45-minute piping hot shower, and my parents didn't say a word about it. So thank you, mom and dad.
Yeah, I don't think they really cared at that point.
No,
But
no.
no, I don't know. Like, you come back. I mean, that first time was certainly, right back to the army, right back to the BS. And the second time I came back was when I was done working with you guys. I came back. I had pretty much decided I wasn't going to go back. I was going to find something else to do. I'd been applying to school, and and I knew that I had classes starting in January, but I
Mm-hmm.
had no job, and and that that stress, you come back and you're just so stressed out. Like, I went to like an interview like a day after I came back, and then ran into somebody at a red light with my car. I just wasn't paying any attention. I literally did. Like, the day after I came back, I got in like one of the only wrecks of my life. I just wasn't paying attention and just ran right into somebody like at a red light.
Jeez.
And I was just so, I don't know, I was so out of it or something, just not paying attention, just not used to driving. I hadn't driven in a while, there's no reason
Yeah.
to. And then you just rear end somebody at a stoplight, and you're just like, eh, you're just so mad at yourself. You're just like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I don't, I got just, it's been a rough week. Like, I don't know what to say.
That is a
Like,
weird feeling because that's something that we don't think about, right? Like driving to go places is just so, uh, so drilled into our DNA, right? Like it's a nothing issue. You see those memes about people who are like, I'm driving and like I wake up while I'm driving and I'm going 85 on the highway. Like that happens to everybody. We all have that moment where we just kind of black out and we're not paying attention to what we're doing. Well, when you don't drive for a year, like it is like riding a bike where you pick it back up pretty quickly, but it's still a really weird feeling because you go from walking around everywhere. Everywhere you go, you walk around. And I was like, I have to drive myself. I got to remember how to do this and use turn signals and you know shit like that. And that's one of those little things that nobody really thinks about until it's time to do it.
Yeah, yeah, like
yeah,
it's
it's
something you have to actively focus on. Like even when you do drive in Afghanistan, you're going like 15 miles an hour. I think most bases
right.
it's like
Yeah,
20 kilometers an hour is the speed limit, and so you have to when
not a
you
lot
get
of
back home,
traffic either.
like yeah, when you get back home, like stuff that you could kind of just sort of you know coast through without thinking about it. You have to. It's sort of like being a new driver. Like you have to actively think. Okay, I need to look because people are moving at speeds faster than a brisk jog out here. So I have to be prepared for that.
But it was just like I was walking around in a daze for a little while the second time, because like I'd come back, and had my own house that I had not even lived in before. We bought it while I was deployed, and so I have to come back and like don't even know where anything is in my house. And you're just like, well, I think I'm just gonna sleep for a long time, and go to a job interview and like realize you actually have to go back to living it. There's not like an army waiting for you. Like, I have to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my life. That was tough, man, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Like,
I had something similar to that when I got back. So Stu and I we got back, but like the Monday after Thanksgiving, and my wife had moved into our place. She stayed with her parents while I was gone for the most part, and then towards like that November, I told her like let's find a house that we could rent when I get back, and so she'd been there for less than a month, and so yeah, it was a brand new place for me, and you take a couple days trying to figure out where everything's at. Luckily, it was a really small house, so it didn't take me too long to figure it out, right? But that's just one of those things. You know, yeah, it's I couldn't imagine trying to buy a house from Afghanistan because I remember I was trying to get satellite, like I was trying to get direct TV or something set up from Afghanistan, and holy shit, that was the most difficult thing on the planet. And they're like, "Why are you calling from Afghanistan?" I'm like, "Because I'm coming home in a month. What's it matter? Here's the address. Go, go put service over there." Right? Like for me, the whole I need to find a job didn't happen until like 6 months later, thankfully. Because of those extra weeks.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, I had to come back and pretty much be like, okay, well, what I'm gonna do? What I'm gonna do for health insurance for the fam? You know, what am I gonna do for all that? I think I used like the healthcare.gov thing for a while because I think I was contracted before I got hired on full time doing tech, tech work on computers. And I think I was contracted for a while, and I had no health insurance. I had to get that, purchase that, on the market. It's terrible. And
Well, the quote unquote market.
yeah, the
Yeah.
the totally free market where these people are competing with each other. But yeah, yeah, it was rough. It was rough coming back and trying to find a job because you realize you've gained like zero practical skills in your life.
Yep.
Like, okay, I come back, I can conduct intelligence, I can write papers, which helps in in a master's degree. Like, let me tell you, I mean, I can BS a paper for school in like no time. But okay, so I can write papers. What else can I do? Operate signals intelligence stuff on a spy plane. I can speak Korean. Like, okay, cool, yeah. Well, buddy, I mean, you can work at Walmart, or you can try to figure out what the hell you're going to do in the civilian world,
There's not a
and
big need for Korean speakers in East Tennessee.
no, there's not, and it's you have these skills that you were proud of, that you worked really hard to obtain, and then they're completely useless outside of that environment. So I think that's one reason. I think we talked about it last time when we talked about contracting. It's one of those reasons people go back. I think a lot of people have it in their head that they're going to break out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're faced with the daunting task of breaking out of it, and you're on the next plane back because it's so hard to. I don't know. It was rough. Those were rough couple years.
Well, man. Imagine being one of those guys that contracted for like 10 years, and now the war is ending on you, and you go from being like a mid to senior level position in intelligence or whatever you were working during the war to now having to start essentially completely over from scratch. Like, you might not even have a finished degree to fall back on, and so you're suddenly going from like doing really well and making good money to being way behind everyone else.
And that was the big thing that drove me to telling myself that when I decided to ultimately be a contractor, that it would be a one time thing, and it was. I remember talking to my wife about it, and I told her like, "This is what we get paid." She's like, "That's great." I'm like, "Yeah, the problem with contracts is that contracts end, right? And they not necessarily when you want them to, right? So that's the big thing. Yeah, you get paid a lot of money to work on a contract, but I'll take a 10% pay cut. I'll take a 20% pay cut if it means I got some job security, And so that's why when I came back, I did the same thing you did, Kyle. I started going to school. I actually started before I left Afghanistan, you know, with my very famous women's studies class.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like
You graciously shared with the rest of us as you were going through it.
yes, that was a fun group experiment. I think I still get an A for the class, even though you guys helped me out.
Mm.
Right? It's a gen ed, no one cares. But I came back and I took pretty much December off, and I started school immediately in January. And then like 3 months later, it was well, it's I need to do something with my free time, so I got a job, and I needed to help pay some of the bills. Like we didn't have a lot of bills, but we had some bills, and so I was like, I need to get a job. So I started doing retail like every other college kid, and that was nice. The big thing I noticed, probably the biggest thing I noticed coming back from Afghanistan, and not so much Iraq, because when I was in Iraq, I was a part of the closeout unit. So like 2 months after I came back, everybody was mostly gone until ISIS rose from the dead in 2014. But the big thing I noticed after Afghanistan is I couldn't watch the news because every now and then when they do talk about Afghanistan, it's wildly inaccurate. It's not even close to the truth of what is going on.
And it's wildly different than any of the non-reporting that has occurred over the past 20 years. Because
Yes.
all of a sudden, people act like they want us there. I mean, well, I guess the money's about to dry up, so obviously you got to start pumping the propaganda out.
No,
Yeah,
so
and none of the news networks have their like Afghanistan analysts anymore. It's like those jobs dried up back in 20 14, 2015, and all of a sudden they have to try to talk about this area that they know nothing about again.
Well, and then some of the analysts they did have, I don't care that this person has a Medal of Honor. I will speak down to his intellect anytime I get a chance. Dakota Meyer was a military analyst for like Fox News or something at one point, and his whole thing was basically, yeah, we need to go kill more people. Like, great analysis, bro. What you did,
Yeah,
you
it
did
doesn't
an
really help you build a country.
right. You did an amazing thing 10 years ago, and I will observe that and give you the respect you deserve. But shut the fuck up when it talks about policy. You know,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
talking about people being upset now, literally today, these are the opinion pieces written in the past 12 hours from the Hill. Afghanistan has long been a lost cause, but the ending was too abrupt, as if there's a perfect time to rip a band aid off. From
yeah,
Bloomberg, the U.S. has given up defending the women and children of Afghanistan, which we've talked about some. Again, at some point, you have to realize what you're doing isn't working, and the best recourse may be to get the hell out of the way. Also from the Hill, well, this one I'm okay with this one. We need a memorial to honor the dead in America's longest war. We need a lot more than that, but that's not a bad start. We need
Yeah.
some fucking accountability for this 20-year boondoggle. That will never happen though.
So, I mean, you'd
yeah.
have to go to the some of the big names in contracting and war profiteering and whatnot to deal with that. Not to mention all the senators and congressmen that'll never face accountability.
No, and that's like, we'll get a little current, I guess, right? And this is something that also came with coming back from Iraq. Like, I came back from Iraq a completely different human being, from how I viewed other people to how I looked at fiscal legislation, civil legislation, military legal legislation. Like, everything about me changed. Except I'm still a pretty. I was always a pretty nice person to everybody, even if I may have disagreed with some of their personal life choices,
Eh,
right? But everything else about me has changed. And you know, coming home, and I go on this tangent quite a bit. My frustration with Barack Obama. I understand why people like him. He's a very well spoken person who happens to be the first black president. That's all good and well. Barack Obama killed more brown people in the Middle East than anybody else. Nobody gives a shit, right? More Americans are dead in Afghanistan because of Barack Obama than anyone else. Nobody gives a shit, right? Like, he tried to extend us in Iraq. Everybody seems to just gloss over this. He didn't want to leave Iraq. We left Iraq because the president or the prime minister of Iraq, Nuri al-Maliki, would not bend on immunity for American troops. An understandable decision for him to make. So we left, and he got shit on for that. Well, he also maintained Guantanamo, right? Like, there's all these things he did not do, and he just gets a fucking pass. And those are
and he,
things I
he
never
campaigned
noticed.
on leaving Iraq, but
Yes.
And Guantanamo,
people
and ending
think,
Yeah.
oh well,
Guantanamo.
he just he was just planning on it, and so we left. But you have to
Yeah.
look
So,
at
like,
politicians' intentions once they actually get into office, because oftentimes they're completely different from what they campaign on, and you'd think people would understand that by now, but you still get a lot of true believers out there that really think that their guy's gonna change this time, but it
and
hasn't
and for the
hasn't
people
happened yet.
listening to this, for the people who are listening to this who like Barack Obama, my opinion is not unique to him. I hold the same opinion of George W. Bush for even going into Iraq. I hold the same opinion of Donald Trump for also campaigning on ending Afghanistan, having 4 years to do it and not doing it, and for wanting to expand the use of Guantanamo. Right? I hold this opinion on Joe Biden for his support for the ongoing war in Afghanistan. Like, this isn't Zach's mad at Barack Obama. This is Zach just realized in Iraq that all politicians are shitty, and they'll send your kids to die for their personal financial gain.
And that's another thing too. I mean, we to bring it back to like the homecoming topic is that and you touched on it earlier, Zach, is you have to talk to people who be like, oh, how was the war? I mean, they don't ask that.
I hate that question.
Yeah, how's the war going? I don't know. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. And the thing is, like, you come back to people, because I don't come from like a military family. I don't come from any of my friends. None of my immediate friends or relatives ever done that. So that you come back and they start asking questions like, everything about Afghanistan is probably either incorrect or so watered down, and like they wonder why I'm so like angry, especially when I came back all the time. It was like, no, like you said, no one gives a shit at best, and then nobody understands what's going on. They don't realize how bad it is. So when the Afghanistan papers came out, it kind of it drew that to light, but nobody read them. It's like there's like a
We
certain
did,
group
but
we did, yeah,
we're a
we
small
talked
number of
about it,
people.
Yeah.
but like a small number of people. But like the average person, I mean, has no clue that we have basically squandered all these lives and resources on both sides of this war for no reason for 20 years. And now that it's coming back and the inevitable's happening, you're finally getting news agencies being like, oh, they're taking provincial capitals. Like, well, we've been calling that for a long time. I mean, I've said it would happen, and it's just depressing to watch, because it's like you had a glimpse of the future being there, and no one can really appreciate it or understand it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Especially,
remember.
as members of, the intelligence community, like, you know, we, along with, hundreds of other people, have been, calling this out and trying to, bring attention to it, through our chains of command. But as we talked about previously, not all of the bad news tends to make it out of country, to the real decision makers. And even when it does make it out, they have other focuses besides the well-being of the war, and other considerations that they're taking in, like, oh, but we have this big contract that's going to bring a lot of jobs to my state, so we have to do that. So,
We had a running bit, if you will, in Kandahar where um, if you had an assessment or if you had a thought bubble or anything like that, and it turned out to be wrong, you just double down and you do it anyways, right? Remember that, Kyle?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, double down.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
down, right? And in 2011, the Taliban commander for Uruzgan province, actually, I think the Taliban in general, but I know for sure the Taliban commander in Uruzgan province announced that the Taliban strategy was to go to the less populated parts of Afghanistan, which again number the urban areas 3-1, and develop their influence in those areas before worrying about going to the large urban areas. And in 2016, 5 years after they said that, our strategy was still to take care of the large, densely populated areas that are more likely to be anti-Taliban without us being there. And that policy existed up until what, 3 months ago?
Well, up until we decided we were going to get out of there, and then they just moved all that support into the actual populated areas, and then
Yeah.
We had 10 years to deal with what the Taliban literally said they were doing. You don't give away the fucking play, right? You don't walk up to the line of scrimmage and go, hey, we're running a halfback screen to the right. And the Taliban came up and said, hey, we're running a halfback screen to the right. And we just said, cool, we're going to blitz to the left.
well, I mean, the truth is, we didn't really have at the time. We didn't have resources there to counter that. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, we already talked about how all these teams didn't have enough people. When we were talking to some of the guys that would go out and interface with the population, they didn't have the support. We used to have good intelligence on district governors, and then when I'm there doing green and white, we might have information on the provincial governors if the province is hot, and we lost all that district support. So of course the Taliban can freely operate there, and I think that was it. I think it's like we know the play, but we're not going to commit anything to it, and it's just and instead of just drawing out, then we're just going to keep drawing it out for another few years.
Well,
Yeah.
we didn't.
And
We
you
didn't
really can't
have.
understate, like, the effect that corruption and generally ineffective military Afghan military operations contributed to that as well. All right, we're not trying to sit here and say it was all because of one thing that we lost the war, but it
Oh, for
it
sure, we're not
definitely
saying
didn't
that.
help that we had a kind of big conglomeration of Afghans not doing war so good, and the U.S. not having the resources to to win the war without the Afghans doing their job.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. So I get where you're coming from, Kyle. Where yeah, we didn't have all the resources, and we've addressed that on the pod before. Uh, we didn't have enough SF teams to do it. That's not to say we didn't have enough conventional infantry units that couldn't go into these villages and do the same function, right? Like village stability operations is not. I would argue is not a uniquely SF thing. What you need is people who can speak the language for sure, but a conventional infantry unit can do the same thing, unless you disagree.
I just say oftentimes the way we used conventional infantry in Afghanistan was the same way that we used like the Afghan National Police. Like we'd set up a base, we'd stick a platoon or a company of infantry on it on a hill, hopefully, or in a bowl in some cases that
Yeah, that
ended
was
up
really
getting
stupid.
addressed later. But we weren't really using our infantry like offensively. From my perspective, what I saw, we used them a lot more defensively.
I really don't think, at least while we were there, we literally didn't have the troops to support it. I don't think. And, what ones we did, I think Stu touched on, I mean, they were garden gates,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how many villages are there and how many, conventional troops do we have, actual troops trained to do that? And it's just not many. And I don't think that we were willing to, at that point, uh, commit the resources there.
Well, there were 47 Loy Karezes in Kandahar province alone, so there's a lot of villages, right? And some of them have different names. Um, but no, I agree. Yeah, the resources weren't there. What I was getting to is that in general we had the resources. You would have to have seriously plussed up the fighting force in Afghanistan in order to accomplish the mission, and we never did. And a large part of that was, and we've talked about this before, is like the people just don't have the will for us to be there doing that. The American people didn't want us in Afghanistan anymore, and so if you did say, oh, we're going to send 150,000 Marines and Army soldiers to Afghanistan for these village stability operations, whoever made that decision would not get reelected.
Right, because even if we did have the troops, how long are we going to commit them there? The answer is, got to be what, another generation of people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
nobody wants to do it. We've already been there long enough, 16, 17 years at the time. So, I, I mean, there's no easy answer in that, and it circles back around to those articles you mentioned. Is it's easy to sit back and critique something as as an op-ed writer for the Times or the Post or whoever, and say, "Well, we're letting down the people of Afghanistan." Well, what does that mean? Like, we let down the people of Afghanistan by invading their country with the with no real plan beyond, I don't know, get Bin Laden.
Yep.
We let down the people of the country by not having anything in place to build a new country out of the wreckage of it. So,
Technically, the
we've already let
people
them
of
down.
Afghanistan let us down too by
True, with it,
harboring Taliban and having an issue with being invaded. Okay, you could you could look at it from that perspective.
you can, and then not having the will, generally, like their armed forces do not have the will to fight against the Taliban, and all that comes together to basically paint this really shitty picture that says to me, who came back and basically turned into a complete pacifist. It says to me that we never should have done it to begin with. We never should have done this invasion to begin with, and as much as I'd like to think we've learned our lesson from it, I don't think we have. We'll probably do it again.
Probably. I mean, there's an op-ed, right, that says that the U.S. isn't done in Afghanistan, and they're probably right. I give it 5 years. We'll be back. If we actually, which it looks like we're actually going to pull out, so I give it 5 years and we'll be back. I might be giving us 4 years too much credit.
We might be back at the next election cycle.
Yeah.
Depends on who has the House and Senate.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, but I don't know. The whole thing's depressing to me. So yeah, and cycling back to that homecoming thing, man, I came back and just, at first I was angry, and then I just became a pacifist. I'm like, yeah, I don't really believe in war. I mean, self-defense and defense of the ones you love. It's about as far as violence goes for me now, gentlemen. And playing Doom on PC, that's fun too. But
I think I've been there. I've probably been there since I got back from Iraq, which is 10 years ago in 2 months, right? And by the way, it still feels like yesterday. Like coming back from a deployment it never feels like it was that long ago. That's probably the big thing. I remember after a year had passed, I was like, holy shit, I've been back for a year already. And then 2 years passed. And then 5 years passed when I was in Afghanistan. I was like, fuck, it feels like I was just in Iraq a week ago. Right? Like it still feels like that at times, where it feels like I just got home from Afghanistan the other day. That'll probably never go away, right? But that's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
When you think about it, because it's now been 5 years since I went to Afghanistan, and it doesn't feel like it.
No. I still know where everything is. It's like in my head, I feel like you could drop me off there, and we could probably get some pretty sweet deals on some Toyota Hiluxes or land cruisers right now if we could get them out. But
you can have a Land Cruiser. I just want a Hilux.
Yeah. Well, like we're sitting here like talking to each other, and it feels like we never really left because we all kind of picked back up on the same page. And I think that's the way it is with any of your military comrades. Like I went hiking not too long ago with some guys I went to Defense Language Institute with, and it was like we never spent 5 years apart, and because I guess guys can do that, military comrades can do that, and we pick back up. So 5 years it does seem like yesterday, because like we can still sit here and talk about it, but here I'm sitting like, what the hell has happened in Afghanistan in the 5 years since I've been there? Nothing good.
Three of the groomsmen from my wedding were in Iraq with me, and one of them flew in from Germany, right? Like, so one of the really good things that comes out of war, and there are a few good things, is the relationships, right? Because I remember getting back from Iraq, and we're all in the barracks together because none of us are married, and we're all E5s and below, and like we're watching the presidential debates, like the Republican primary debates and shit, right? And we're all drunker than skunks and hanging out, and none of us have the same political views, and we're just having a good old time. Like once we got back from Iraq, we were all friendly with each other before we went, but we were inseparable when we came back. Like I still have their phone numbers in my phone. We'll text every now and then. Like those are relationships that I've had going on over a decade now, that it's really hard to explain that friendship after going through. And mind you, our time in Iraq wasn't terrible, right? It wasn't great. There were some definitely not fun things about it, but for the most part, we were really just on a compound built around Saddam Hussein's palace, going to work and providing intel support. There wasn't a whole lot to it, but still the relationship changed when we got back, and it improved when we got back.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the same thing. I just had my my buddy's wedding a few months ago, and went and saw some guys that I hadn't seen since I got out of the military in 2016. And you just kind of you fall right back into those relationships, and it's super easy, and there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of sort of built-in understanding between all of you, because it's the same type of thing you have with like close friends that you've known your whole life. There's a level of understanding there where you're able to sort of like go, no matter how much time has passed, you're able to sort of link back in with each other, and it works out.
Absolutely.
I think something that I've kind of experienced since I stopped contracting, because I've had a lot of time in Afghanistan. Out of the group of us here, I spent between the military and contracting about 4 years, and I think it was like 49 months that I've been in Afghanistan. Something that's kind of struck me since I've been done with it is like I don't know, the sort of weird sense of like lack of purpose. Like, you kind of, while you're over there, everything's really simple. You have like clear objective. You're trying to win the war, no matter how difficult that is. And there's sort of a sense of like a sense of importance, laid in with your job. And when you come back home and you're done with that finally, it kind of, I don't know, kind of struck me as like lacking something once I got back.
Yeah, I remember, so I, like I said, I got back, I started up school, then I picked up a job just doing retail, right? Something to help kind of pay the bills, because the GI Bill, the housing allowance, is paying most of them. But I remember getting a job just doing retail, nothing too fancy, and like I'm sitting there and I'm working, and I'm working with a bunch of college kids, like college aged kids, and everybody wants to know everybody's life story. That's how you get to know people. And I realized, like, shit, 9 months ago I was briefing like the commander of, like, of TAC South about what the Taliban's plan is in Kandahar, and how they're going to go about wanting to accomplish that plan, and where their strong areas are, and who the key figures are that we need to look towards targeting. And now it's like somebody needs help finding a 5/8 socket wrench.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I damn near about got kicked out of nursing school for arguing with somebody over a stupid paper grade. Like, I told them, they're like, I don't think they're like, you didn't do this right. And I mean, and keep in mind, like, I had really just gotten back, not that long. And I was just like, not having it. I'm like, my papers have been read at the damn Pentagon. Like, what, what are you arguing about my paper for? Like, got written up for that. And like the college is like, don't, you can't say that stuff. I'm like, I can say whatever I want. Like, I'm a goddamn American, like, I say whatever, I do whatever I want, like, screw you. Like, I just got so mad, and I was just living with all this anger and just frustration too. And then, yeah, it's just, that's not healthy. And then, like you said, Zach, you go from briefing these commanders, to sitting in a class full of college kids, and they're all,
They're all dumb,
like 22, and they want to talk to you because you're clearly older than they are. And
I was in a
like,
class. I was in a communications class at Boise State before I went to Afghanistan, right? And our professor is like, we did anything but communications. It was more like a current events class. And there was this one student who would always start off with, uh, that's how every sentence, I feel that we should look at adjusting the minimum wage for those who are marginally affected by the economy. Like, that's not a real sentence she said, but that is along the lines of something she would say. And I don't really care about her opinion on the minimum wage. What was pissing me off to no end was starting every sentence with "I feel" or "I believe," and I was like, and I just, one day I lost it. Said, "How about you start a sentence with 'I think'? Let me know. I want to know what you know." And my teacher's like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Sorry, I'm used to, an exchange of ideas, not an exchange of what you believe or think. I want to know what you know. Right? And it just took everybody back. And then I settled down through the semester, right? And I wasn't this big mean hard ass, but that was like their first introduction to me, was just getting pissed off at this girl because she wouldn't speak with confidence.
She doesn't know how to think
and that's the whole...
independently yet, Zach. She's trying to learn how to do that.
I know.
God, you monster.
I do. I remember, like, what did they tell us? Like, when you're in the Army, it's like, I remember, like, going, I don't even remember what they're called, to be honest. It's been so damn long ago. When you go to the boards, you go to the board for promotion or whatever, and you have to answer all those questions, and everybody that hypes you up for it. It's like, never admit you're wrong.
Bullshit.
So that's what they told me, and it worked, man. I'm telling you, it's just you have to have the confidence, dude. And that's what like. I was literally told that by so many people, like high-ranking officers and stuff. It's like when people ask you questions, like, "Are you sure you remember that whole creed or whatever?" You say, "Yeah, absolutely," even when you miss it, because you don't second guess yourself, dude. Have some
They're not
and
going
it's
to call
about the
you out right
confidence,
there. Yeah.
You can
and that
confidently say
confidence
you
is
don't know.
yeah, but that is, I mean, having that confidence is dangerous, man. When you
Oh
come
yeah.
back into
Oh
the
yeah.
regular world and you're just way too confident in that shit, you're just like, people find that very off-putting. So you just have to shut up
I
sometimes.
so when we got back from Afghanistan, when I got back from Afghanistan, I'm in a class, right? And I can't remember it was, a marketing class, and I was a marketing co-major, right? And so I had to write a paper about marketing tactics or techniques or something like that. So I write this paper and I look at it like, yeah, that's fucking good. That's real good. It's all active voice. We're good to go, right? Proper punctuation, not too many commas. This is gonna fucking kill it. And I got a C, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I still got an A in the class, but I was pissed for like a day.
Yeah. But I
Confidence
mean,
will kill you
that's not the
sometimes.
style of writing that they really want in college in general, right? Like,
Well, the Army writing style is not conducive to the Intel writing style. Like that's something that nobody ever talks about. The Army writing style is what, sixth grade reading level?
yeah,
And then
Yeah.
the Intel writing style is we use big words with 3 syllables.
eighth grade reading level.
Whatever it is.
You got to reach those high ranking officials with your 8th grade reading level. You know that they'll
there
want
were some
stop go chart
people
anyway.
there were some people that couldn't grasp a stop go chart, let alone writing something at the 8th grade level, right? But the weird thing was, so some of these people are friends of mine now, and I really like them. They're awesome people. Other people, I don't, like I said, I don't dislike them. They're just not my friends, but they'd want to talk to me about being in Afghanistan and shit like that. And I'm just like, they had no idea what was going on. I'm like, what fucking year were you born? Like, well, I was born in 1998. I'm like, what the hell? How
Fuck.
do you not know this stuff? Like, how do you not know what's going on? Well, I don't watch the news. Like, you should. You're a taxpayer now. Like, what the hell?
But I mean, let's be real. I mean, if they were born in '98, like, I mean, 9/11 happens when they're 3. You know, you grow up. I mean, people forgot about the Afghan war as soon as we went into Iraq. So, I mean, yeah, why would they know? You know,
Dude,
why would they know
I was
anything about
10
it?
when 9/11 happened, and I knew dick all about the war until I joined the military.
See, it
Yeah,
was a little different for me growing up in the military. I grew up right outside of Fort Bragg, right?
Yeah.
So from the age of 13, I was 13 when 9/11 happened. Like, it was just war. It was all war all the time in that area. And so, like, going to Iraq, I had a different perspective of things, right? I looked at things as a kid who grew up on a military base. So then coming back and doing a complete 180 when it comes to things like especially foreign policy and non-intervention, which is not the same as isolationism, John McCain. I remember coming back and like people were just like, yeah, it's a shame we can't stay there longer. I'm like, why the fuck do you want to stay here? Iraq's not necessarily a shithole, but it can be at times. I'm like, why do you want to spend more time and resources and blood and treasure in this fucking country? And
Yeah, because you get
that's
a
when I
little slash
realized
on your sleeve, man.
that's when I realized I lived in a fucking bubble. Right? The Fort Bragg bubble, man. It is real. The nice thing about Fort Lewis is it's right outside of Seattle. There was no bubble.
yeah. I've never been to Fort Bragg, but I think Hood is similar. But thank God I didn't grow up there because I'd probably long ago done something stupid. So, yeah.
I don't know. I think you have the ability, based on who you are, you probably would have rev- not reverted, but converted to this, right? Because I grew up as I was a neocon. Like, there's no other way to look at it. I remember I did a paper in like the 12th grade justifying the war in Iraq, right? Because I was 17,
Yeah,
and
that's hardcore, dude. 12th
dude,
grade.
I mean, I'm a high school senior. I'm like, oh, it was like an oral communications class, and I was like, I'm gonna write a paper. You had to write a persuasive paper, and I'm gonna persuade them on why the war in Iraq's a good thing. And man, I can still recite that word for word in my head. I couldn't read it out to you, but I can look at, like, I can close my eyes and see the fucking paper, and I'm like, this is such a bad argument. This is such a bad argument for a fucking war, and I believed this at one point. And that's when I realized that I didn't know shit. So everybody should travel the world and open up your eyes to the world around you, because there's a good chance if you go to fucking Canada, like you don't even have to go to the other side of the world. You just go to a different country for a week and you're going to see things a whole lot different.
Yeah. Get a newfound respect for those gooses up there, I hear.
Oh, I love those Canada gooses. You got a
Canada
problem with
goose.
those Canada gooses, you got a problem with me.
Them's majestics up there.
I think speaking of the Iraq thing too is like one of the most vindicated people I think in life are the Dixie Chicks. In my life, I think the Dixie Chicks are the most vindicated for their statements.
That is the dumbest controversy ever. Like they didn't even say that George Bush was a dick, or they was like, we don't like that he's from Texas.
It's true. Yeah.
Like we just don't like that he's from Texas, and people got so fucking up in arms about that. Like they're driving over CDs and shit, and I'm like, well, if they paid for him, good for the Dixie Chicks.
Yeah, I don't know
it's
why
wild
people blame
how
him
crazy
for
the war
stuff. It was all Cheney.
Yeah, it's just wild how crazy that war fervor was. Because I remember it. I 100% remember it, at 9/11 and then the invasion of Iraq. And just remember how hyped everybody up. And everybody like, oh, the Dixie Chicks, a bunch of anti-Americans. Dude, now you say worse than that on like the night show, like the Tonight Show. It's like
I unironically, there's the word. I unironically ordered freedom fries, right, as a teenager. I remember doing that. I saw Toby Keith when I was in Iraq, and this was like right before my conversion to this classical liberalism that I profess now and not intervention. Like I saw Toby Keith in Iraq, and I'm like, this is so fucking cool. And then I think about it, and I was like, God, he's such a fucking douchebag, right? Him and Bruce Springsteen and Alan Jackson, and I won't speak an ill word of Alan Jackson, but like they made all this money writing all these songs about like war and shit. It's like, kind of shitty people.
Yeah.
Oh well, they saw an opportunity and capitalized on it. So what do you do?
There you go. There's something about like coming home. I remember coming home and seeing movies about the wars that we were in, like that came out while we were gone.
That's true. Yeah,
I'm like, what the fuck? I remember what World Trade Center with Nicolas Cage, the God's gift to acting, like that came out. What, 2004? Yeah. I was 16, and I thought, my God, that just happened 2.5 years ago. Have some respect for the dead. And then I'm like, oh wait, Casablanca came out in like 1942. Never mind. But they just blew my mind how there's like all these movies and shit. And like I've said before, I've seen 2 war movies about these wars. I saw Hyena Road, which was awful, and I saw The Hurt Locker, which was also awful, by the way. And not even because Hurt Locker. I could get behind half of the story, right? Like I don't care about all the uniform fuck ups and shit. I can't stand those veterans that'll get on Instagram like, oh my God, his patch is on the wrong side. Like I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the story, right? And it's like some of the story was just wildly unbelievable. The dealing with the personal shit back home, yeah, that made sense. I get that, right? We've all dealt with something like that, but like just I'm gonna hop over the wire and go find this dude and try to beat the shit out of him. It's like that doesn't work that way.
Yeah. But dude, I'm telling you, it has the best scene in any war movie, in my opinion. At the very end, when he comes back home and he goes to the cereal aisle, and it's just that scene of him looking at the cereal aisle, and it's like what we going all the way back to what we started talking about at the beginning of this episode. He's standing there in the cereal aisle, and there's no words, there's no dialogue, and then the next scene is just him getting back on a plane to get back over there, and that 100%. Yeah. That's one of the best war movie scenes in my opinion.
Just that 1,000-yard stare.
Zach, right? You've seen War Machine.
Oh yeah, War Machine too. But like War Machine's just movie. Fun. Yeah, that's just a fun movie. And
you guys need to watch The Outpost. The Outpost was a pretty good one.
I've heard good things about that one actually.
It's well acted. You got some Orlando Bloom in it. It's a good movie.
I will try. I will make a concerted effort to try. I am, like I said towards the beginning, I became very much a cynic when I came back from Iraq, and so and people have informed me that I'm kind of an asshole sometimes about this stuff.
No,
especially when it comes to like war movies, I don't want to watch them. I just don't. I remember watching War Machine because I heard everybody I know who supported the war in Afghanistan said they hated the movie. I'm like, well, I'm going to watch it then. Right, because it's probably hilarious, and it was.
It was
right?
great.
Yeah. Like I watched Hyena Road because I heard Colonel Leesman say, "Oh, it's a good movie." Like it's sir, if you're listening to this, you're an outstanding human being, and I would love to catch up with you. But that movie fucking sucked. Um, and then there's Hurt Locker, which I saw before I went to Afghanistan, right? Which I think is an Iraq War movie,
It
anyways.
is, yeah.
Like I just remember coming back and the whole "thank you for your service" thing just rung like it rang a different bell.
Yeah.
And I know people are coming from a place of sincerity, so I'm never an asshole about it. I just say thank you. Like 2 weeks ago, I heard somebody say "you're welcome," and that drove me up the wall. I if I weren't in public being a private citizen and a nice human being, I just wanted to go, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Because that seems so wrong to be like, "Oh yeah, you're welcome.
It's
Yeah, I'm a goddamn hero. You're fucking right." It's like, no, dude, you say thank you and you move along.
it's some,
Service the country
it's some
is
fucking
like.
cook. It's always a cook.
I did not enjoy. So this is one my mom. She listens to this. She's going to give me hell for this one, but where this is catharsis, right? I don't like being called a hero. I do not like it at all. But it's very much in the same tune as somebody saying thank you for your service. I'll be very polite about it, but I don't like. I didn't do anything heroic. Nothing I did was heroic.
Yeah, same.
You got fired for being a man.
Yeah. Dakota Meyer, who, like I said, I disagree with his politics. He is a hero, right? And he has earned that title. I disagree with his policies, but he's a fucking hero. Leroy Petrie, well, I like Leroy Petrie. I've met him once, nice guy. Rob O'Neill, who killed Bin Laden, he's kind of a dick, but he's a hero. I'm not a hero, dude. I was a fucking intel analyst.
Yeah, I knew one guy who did something I think I would consider like heroic, and not in like probably a way you would consider it, but basically just like, I mean, it pretty much just canceled a very important airstrike on a target because he saw kids there they were going to shoot anyway.
Oh,
and
shit.
He called it off, and so it's like, to me that's kind of like a heroic thing to do. And one of the only people I could say that I knew that was like, oh, that's definitely heroic. But yeah, I'm with you, Zach. I don't watch the war movies really. I don't watch a lot of movies anymore, but I don't watch the war movies. And yeah, and there was a period I went to the Indy 500, which is, I love motorsport, and that's honestly one of the coolest events I've ever been to. But they do this whole thing because it's Memorial Day weekend every year, and they have like this huge. I mean, they have all these troops there, and they have like all this thing like, if you're a veteran or a veteran of the armed forces or whatever, just stand up. And like Lee Greenwood is there playing. I hate Lee Greenwood, dude. He's there playing like Proud to Be American, but they're like, oh, any veteran in the audience, stand up. And it's just like, and I'm with a bunch of my friends and they're drunk, and it's like, stand up, yeah. And like, and you're just standing there like drunk on Coors Light, just like feeling like shit. You're just like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it does come from a place of sincerity, but it just all felt like propaganda to me.
Yeah. It feels weird, man. The only time I've ever used the veteran thing was I was in Vegas with my buddy, and we were at a Penn and Teller show, and they wanted a volunteer for their bullet catching trick, and so I raised my hand, and they're like, "How do you know about guns?" I'm like, "I'm in the Army," and so I got to go up on stage. So that was the one time. But I mean,
the only time I play the veteran card is when they go to Lowe's, because I always spend a shitload of money. So I'll gladly get that discount. Right? I remember when I was working retail, I worked at an Ace Hardware, right? And we were a steel dealership, like the steel lawn trimmers and shit like that, and chainsaws. And some guy came in and he wanted to buy a steel chainsaw, and still doesn't offer a military discount. And he was buying $170 chainsaw, right? It's their cheapest one, and it's still pretty good. And he was like our age, and he asked about a military discount. And I'm like, oh, there's no military discount at the store. And he goes on this, oh, I fucking served, and this is the thanks I get. I'm like, no, Jesus. Man, the thanks you get is far greater than fucking 10% off a goddamn chainsaw.
Yeah, it's free college.
Right? Yeah, there are all these benefits for you to use, dude. Like, saving $15 on a chainsaw is not one of them.
You get loans that just get approved.
Yep.
Get to go to college, get all this other stuff.
Yeah, I discovered last year. So I graduated in 2019, and I keep dragging my feet on studying for the GMAT for business school or for grad school. And out of curiosity, I looked into my GI Bill, and I still have like 2 semesters of fucking education benefits left over. I'm like,
Oh
fuck,
shit.
my grad school is going to be free,
Yeah.
mostly free. Right? It's crazy. Yeah, you get thanked in so many ways. I had a VA home loan, which required zero down, which I was working retail, so that worked out pretty well. And I got my house at a good price, anyways. Like, yeah, there's all sorts of benefits out there.
Yeah.
I got healthcare; it's free. It's kind of shitty sometimes, but it's free. You know, like
Just think, man. Once this podcast takes off, you'll be able to pass those 2 semesters off to your kids. Then you go.
they get one each, I guess. But it's just it's crazy because I didn't really think about it too much until you said, Kyle, like last week that you wanted to talk about this. It's like, oh, I need to think about what it was like coming back, and it's like, oh god, it was super awkward, right? Like getting
Yeah.
back from Iraq was a little weird, and then we got to the hangar and kind of returned to normalcy. But getting back from Afghanistan was, and maybe it's because I was older. Like I was 23 when I got back from Iraq. I was almost 30 when I got back from Afghanistan. I had a wife and a son by then, and so I just remember like watching the news or reading a news article, and I would look into what's going on in Afghanistan. I'm like, why is this stuff not in the news? This seems important. Why does nobody care? Right? Because Iraq was going on when I was there, obviously, so nobody cared about Afghanistan. I'm like, okay, Iraq's over, but then ISIS happened, so people cared about Iraq again. So then by what, 2016, 2017, about the time we were there, Donald Trump is elected, and he has this big push with Iran and Jordan and all the militias to like just get rid of the Islamic State. And like, God, we found a way to just never care about Afghanistan until like this last 3 months.
Yeah.
And I've cared about it for 5 years.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you care so much about something that you feel is important and affects so many people's lives, and then you have to come back and nobody gives a shit. And it's kind of infuriating. And you want to talk about it, but people think you're weird if you talk about it, so you don't.
Luckily, so the guy that I work with, he sits next to me and he deals with my bullshit. So I appreciate that, and I'll go on a tangent like, this is why this matters. And he's like, fuck, that's crazy. I'm like, I don't know if he means it or not, but I at minimum appreciate him lending an ear, right?
It passes the
Every now
time,
and
bro.
then. Yeah, you need a soundboard every now and then. My wife was my soundboard for a bit. Like I told her all about Rozik, and she listened to Kyle's podcast. So I remember coming back from class the day that Rozik was killed, and I think Brandon had posted it. So I told my wife, and I'm like, they killed Rozik. And she's like, oh fuck. I'm like, you never went. And she's like, still, that's bad, right? I'm like, yeah, that's really bad.
It's bad. Yeah, I texted somebody when Rozik died. I think of my dad. I'm like, they killed Rozik. He's like, who's that? I'm like, don't worry about it. I don't know why I'm talking about it. He's dead now, and it's not.
What do you mean, who's that?
Has you not seen your Taco Tuesday Afghanistan shirt with the real
I don't have
Rozik
that.
quote
He
about
doesn't-
living every
he doesn't
day like
listen to
it's
my
Taco
podcast.
Tuesday?
I really wish I had gotten one of those shirts.
I've got a Rozik patch. I got a Rozik patch, man.
Brandon got a picture with him.
I know he did. He sent it to me, and I got it saved.
That jerk.
I know. I've seen him before, but I didn't ask to get his picture when he was there.
Me neither. I was in the Kipsy, right? Like, I'm sure one of his dudes had a phone though. We could have asked, and he'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Or
Yeah,
one
we
of his
should've just gotten
patches
his
at
picture
least
all
or
the
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got his patch, though. I do have his patch. So.
Nice. Do you see the video of the Taliban like raiding his house in Spin Boldak?
No way, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Hope his wife
couple
and
weeks
kid
ago,
are out there.
How dare
yeah,
they stand
it looked
where
like
he
they
stood.
were. It looked like about 2 weeks ago ish, the Taliban released like a 7-minute long video where they're just like ransacking his house, and they use like one clip like every minute for some random reason, but otherwise they're just like going through every room, and that dude had 1 billion pillows. It is crazy, but no, it's crazy just watching them like just ransack his shit, and like his Humvees and shit are all still parked outside. I'm like, oh my god,
Wow.
like did they just? I'm pretty sure his wife and kids left like the second he died.
Oh yeah,
His brother got them to Malaysia or Dubai or something, right? Like he got them out of there.
yeah, they'll be fine. Hopefully Dubai, that's a little better.
Yeah, less humid.
It sucks. I mean, yeah, it's like that's it. I mean, they definitely won that one. It's wild. I have not seen the video of them ransacking his house though. But yeah, it's like, are you a warlord or are you a basic white girl with all those pillows?
My favorite, like when we talk about just how people don't care or understand about this stuff, is like people realizing that there's a Taliban like office in Doha in Qatar. Like, what do you mean they have an office? I'm like, they're a fucking political party as far as the world is concerned.
Yeah.
Government in exile or whatever.
Yeah, like they're a bunch of assholes, right? But they're a political party at this point in the game. And yeah, they've had an office in Qatar for fucking years. And they're like, and we have an airbase in Qatar. I'm like, yes, we do.
Yeah, when you
And
hear that we're negotiating with the Taliban, that's where it's happening.
You think we're going to Kedah?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to explain that one to people, right? The whole relationship of the Middle East, and it's so the Taliban have a regional office in Doha. They had one in the UAE, but they have them in Doha, and we have Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar or Qatar, however you want to pronounce it. Oh, and we also give the Qatari military or whatever they have, like we give them weapons and shit, and we buy stuff from them, and they're kind of like indirectly harboring the Taliban whilst also funding the Taliban. It's like, and well, like Saudi Arabia doesn't do that. It's like, well, funny you should say that. Saudi Arabia does do that, and we have bases in Saudi Arabia. We give them weapons, and we buy their oil. Like, well, who else? Like, well, the UAE does that. And
I really don't get the love for Saudi Arabia. Like we keep acting like we're cool with them, but like how many of the 9/11 planners were from Saudi Arabia? Like
17 out of 19.
Yeah, it's like
the other two are from Egypt. We are a net exporter of oil. We don't need to have a relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Seriously? Well, we were a net exporter of oil, according to my dad.
Ooh.
Well, it helps balance the Iran thing, and that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, that's look, strong economic relationships with countries is going to do more to resolve these issues than picking and choosing sides for no fucking reason.
If we cozy up to Iran, then the rest of the Middle East will shun them, and then they'll lose all of their power. That's how we get people. We have to play the double game on them.
Is that why Obama did all that shit with the Iranian nuclear deal?
Exactly. See, you're missing the
dude's playing chess.
You're playing
gamer.
You're playing 3D chess, which is normal chess, but he's playing 4D chess, which involves time travel. I think he's up there, man.
That's probably, and I know I've said this like 4 times already, but that might be the biggest thing coming back is realizing just how fucking intertwined all of this is, right? Like there's like you could pull, if you could find the right thread and pull it, this all comes crumbling to the ground. I don't know what that thread is. It's probably somewhere in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But if you pull that thread, this all just fucking falls apart. No, it might be in Pakistan.
The thread itself is just money. The tapestry is, it's probably somewhere in Riyadh. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, guys. Thank you for kind of putting up with our non-structural banter on this episode. This is very similar to what our conversations were like in Afghanistan. Just a little bit of everything at all the times. We look forward to you guys listening to this. As always, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Boardwalk Podcast. Stu will be back in North Carolina next week with his regular setup, so that'll be nice. Yeah. Hey, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.